heartfelt namaste. I, Anuradha Sharda, would like to thank all of you for watching my videos, writing in your comments and your suggestions. Today, we are going to talk about a very karmic notion that we all should be aware of. It is about Rahu. Rahu, we all know, is an enigmatic planet, but we also know that Rahu is the planet that is our outlet of karma. With its trines, Rahu gives us an opportunity to live out our karma of this lifetime. When Rahu is transiting our natal position in the chart, or for that matter, is in the trines to that natal position, it keeps getting us back to those situations for which it has made sure that we learn the lessons of life and move ahead. Now, that Rahu represents the worry. One of the dictums for today's topic is that Rahu represents one of the karakas of that house that it is sitting in, and it will create a major worry in the native for the place where it is placed in the natal chart, and a lot of energy of the native will be lost in that worry. So, if Rahu is placed in the Lagna for us, in such a case, the worry is all about one's own settlement in life. How one would be coming in terms with their own selves, would be putting themselves in the orbit, in the sphere, and would also denote doing one's duty because it's in the Dharma Trikona. If it's in the second house, for that matter, a person can have a lot of worry regarding their education, regarding their studies, regarding their family or wealth. If it is in the third house, then it is all about communication. The person needs to learn. A person can worry a lot about their form of communication, because probably what they're communicating can be mislaid, can be misunderstood, or for that matter, for the papers can get mislaid, because the third house is also all sorts of contracts and all sorts of communication. It can also mean that you would be reckless in your valor. So you might just have to learn how to put your valor to proper use, when to use your strengths, when and understand about your weaknesses also, when to show courage, when to take a step back. If Rahu is in the fourth house, in such a case, it could also mean that you have a lot of karmic debt towards your mother or motherland, and that is where you need to fulfill it before you move forward. Before you will see certain in the transits and the dasha antardasha periods, you will see that no matter how much you want to move out of your home or your um, country or things like that, if you have to pay certain amount of debt to your motherland, family members, or towards your own home, no situations the situations will so arise that you may not be able to find a way out of these kind of situations until and unless you have done some work to fulfill these situations, and learn a lesson, because Rahu is essentially a teacher telling you to complete certain karmic cycles. If Rahu is in your fifth house, then it could be a struggle to establish yourself as a leader. It could be a struggle to learn the intricacies of higher knowledge. It could be a struggle, or it could be a learning curve for you as far as being intelligent is concerned, or as far as learning new mantras, understanding inherent understanding of knowledge and application thereof is concerned. If Rahu is in your sixth house, in that case it tells you to learn how to behave with co um, with people working with you, or people working under you. Also, if Rahu is in the sixth house, then it also tells you to learn how to overcome your shadripus, and learn how to have mercy within you. Now, if Rahu is in your seventh house, then the worry could revolve around your partners, personal or professional. It could also worry, you could also be worried about attaining a platform wherein people give you that respect, people understand you, and you know it. So these are the points of worry that you can have. For example, the sixth house could also give you a worry about earning wealth, because sixth house is also a wealth trikona. So earning wealth and having a good relationship with your co-workers could be a big worry for you. If it is the eighth house, sexually, you there can be predators, so you might just have to control yourself in those areas, or save yourself from predators in those areas. It could also mean that you could have a worry about your ishta devata, wherein you would have to decide how to go about in a sadhana that it pleases your ishta devata. You could have a lot of questions, a lot of interest, and a lot of worries about the areas of tantra also. In the ninth house, it could get you, again, it would also be depending on the sign and the nakshatra it is placed in, not just the house. So if it is in the seventh house, and if it is also in the sign of Sagittarius, it could also give you the change in religion, where it puts you in a high platform. So this is something that we need to coordinate and concise together. If it is in the ninth house, it could talk to you, it could give you an interest in your religion, it could give you a worry about how to uphold your religious beliefs or your traditions, because the ninth house is typically about traditions also, because in and also your higher knowledge, because in Marie Curie's chart, it was Rahu is in the ninth house, shows, and she was born in Poland. She had to move to France for her higher education. So we see that higher education does come into picture here. Again, she would always send her children, her daughters, back to Poland to understand and stay with people there, so that they understood their traditions. So we see a reason, a part of worry, why a person would want to go back to their roots or traditions, and Rahu would subject the person to it from time to time. Again, the 10th house, as we know, and in my experience, I've seen people who have Rahu in the 10th house change their jobs frequently. They're very worried about their jobs. 10th house typically is job. The need to settle in a job, or the constant search of a very perfect job, is something that Rahu in the 10th house shows us. And we learn by repetition, we learn a number of things. So Rahu then puts you through a rigmarole of learning from each job, finding what is wrong and leaving it and moving on to the next. It's the experience that you gather. Then again, when Rahu is in the 11th house, it's an apache house, it's a house that shows a lot of growth. So Rahu here wants you to learn how to interact with people. It also so it causes worry about your interaction, your need, your intense desire to mingle with people, to form big associations. And 11th house is also the house of discoveries, so you could be worried about certain amount of discoveries. 11th house holds a lot of answers and the keys. So it is also, the 11th house can show a constant worry within you, whether your desires are going to be fulfilled or not. And the 12th house is the house of letting go. The 12th house is a house which says that we need to move forward. They can about also about the growth. So here Rahu gives you a tussle, because Rahu is a materialistic planet. Rahu may give you a tussle between letting go and holding on. Your worry is that at times you could let go of things a little too much, so the others can take advantage, or for that matter, you may not be able to let go, where you want to get in a spiritual upliftment. So that could be a sense of worry. Now let us take a few charts to see how this applies in practical life. Okay. And before we move on further, rather, I'd also say that how does one understand? So we are well aware of what worry we may have. But before that, how does it work out? So Rahu, when we're talking about Chinta and Chintan, okay, they both, Chinta means worry and Chintan means to ponder, to give it a thought. Both these words come from one Sanskrit root word, which means chit, which is chit. Chit means your not your mind, your emotions, your thoughts. For a lack of better word, it also, in English, it means your mm, your inner self. So when we quieten the mind, when we quieten the emotions, and when we ponder on it with a lot of intensity, then we would be getting answers to these solutions, and the way that we have to move ahead becomes more and more clearer, and our goals are very much defined. Having said that, now let us move towards the examples. So Rahu makes the native worry a lot about one of the major karakas of the house, and a person is bound to put a lot of energy in that. And as we move towards Shishadri Ayerji's chart, it is understood, as we can make out, that the Rahu is placed in the eighth house. So Shishadri Ayerji is a very well known astrologer, and I have made many videos about his way of working, about his concepts on divisional charts, and his videos and his dictums have been exceptional. So his dictums have been exceptional, which I found working very well in charts. His Rahu is placed in the sign of Cancer in the eighth house. Cancer is a sign of growth, this is the sign of education, and Rahu is the in the eighth house denotes a lot of research. The person may be always constantly worried about research, but once a person gets the path, a person would be doing exceptional amount of research. And we all know Sheshadri Ayerji put in a lot of concepts in astrology with his research and work. Sanjay Gandhi, a very beautiful chart where we see Rahu is placed in the fifth house in the sign of Taurus, and that too in Rohini Nakshatra. And with his mother, when of his coming of age, and his mother being the prime minister, he was very, very um, power associated, and his need was driven to become one of the best ministers, driven by power, to get hold of power in his lifetime. And he was one of the very empowered as well as a very growing kind of a dynamic, dashing person in politics. PT Usha's chart. In PT Usha's chart, we see Rahu is in the second house. Second house denotes your ethics, values, a need to earn money. And they're coming from very humble background. She stood by her ethics. The path was difficult to earn money. But nevertheless, she stood, faced those situations, and came out powerful and victorious as to the lessons that Rahu was planning to teach her. Again, LK Advani ji we see is the sixth house of sixth house of competitions, sixth house of obstacles. Rahu in the sixth house is said to be very, very strong. It is said to be strong because here it gives you an ability to overcome obstacles also. It shows that you would be getting obstacles, obstacles which will not be very small, or which will not be very little in its comparisons. But LK Advani being one of the founder members of BJP party, lived up to what he had expected or what he wanted, and he continued his fight. Even recently, till recently, his fight was on for what he wanted to establish in his country and in his party, and he continued to face those challenges, unprecedented challenges, with a very brave face and a heart. Now, when we take the chart of Denton Cooley, he is supposed to be one of the pioneers in heart surgery, and he very well showed. You see, Rahu is in his fourth house. Rahu is in the sign of Libra, and it is in the nakshatra of Swati. Swati nakshatra essentially states that a person needs to exert his or her self in a very strong manner. Rahu here is also about his asserting an identity in heart surgery, and that is what Denton Cooley did. The fourth house represents heart as an organ. There are many planets that would go on to show that he would become a doctor, but this Rahu Mars combination in the fourth house shows that as a doctor, Mars, let us not forget, is also related to blood, and as a doctor, he needed to establish himself and prove his mettle, as Rahu in this Swati Nakshatra is indicating. Again, when I talked about the eighth house, I did say that it could relate to sexuality. For Ricky Martin, uh, Rahu is posited in the eighth house in Scorpio, and that too in Disht Nakshatra. So here it also goes on to show that he would have an issue with his own sexuality, learn to come to terms with it, and he did come learn to come to terms with it. There was a lot of transformation change in his life. There was a lot of inner turmoil and struggle. That is what the eighth house represents. And later on he came up front and talked about his own homosexuality. Finally, in Albert Einstein's chart, it can be noted that Rahu is again posited with Mars in the sign of Capricorn. Capricorn, we all know it's all about work. The eighth house, as it is posited for Albert Einstein, is the house that denotes work, research. So when we impose the house as well as the sign, it becomes very clear where Rahu is indicating. For Albert Einstein, an exalted Mars in the eighth house along with Rahu here definitely gave him a lot of energy to put in his discoveries, to put in his research, and then bring it out in front of the world. It may not have been easy for him, definitely not, but it empowered him to work on that road, to walk on that road. And as he started walking on that road, many things came up to him and it became very clear to him. Finally, as we wind it up, we will just need to understand that Rahu in your chart, wherever it sits, I'd request all of you to see the sign. I like to see you, want you, all of you to see the house. That gives a very clear picture. And for microscopic view, we can take the nakshatra, which makes everything very, very crystallized. So when we see this, we can understand what our path in life is supposed to be, where we are putting in a lot of energy, where we are putting in worry, and if we concentrate more, we can find excellent solutions that will lead us to working out our path in life and becoming more prosperous and becoming more at peace with our own selves. With this, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and we'll meet you again. If you want to listen to this video, you can also listen to this video on my Spotify channel. Till we meet up with you again,